Okay. So we are thrilled to be here today for our Workforce One and Purchasing Training for Pre-ETS Reps Part 1. I know we have a Part 2 coming on the 14th as well. We have Sherry Hendrickson and Alyssa Klein who are going to deliver this presentation. So we just wanted to first go over the objectives for today, and then I'm going to hand it over. So the objectives are, we're going to review required Workforce One data entry in your role as pre-ETS reps. We're going to give you a chance to practice that Workforce One data entry. Then we're going to talk about ways in which you understand the process for the students on the VR waitlist and how that gets handled. We also want you to make sure to learn this and know what to do when a student applies for regular VR services, and know how to exit a student. So those are the 5 objectives we're going to be going through today. And certainly remember, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A box. We'll be handling most of those at the end, but you can always feel like if you just have the question here and now that you hold it in there, and we'll tackle those at the end. So I will pass it over to
I think I'm next.
Alyssa to do the presentation.
But Sherry will drive it, I think. Hi, everybody. This is Alyssa Klein. Again, I'm a VR transition and pre-employment transition specialist. Glad to be with you today. And Sherry, do you want to introduce yourself and your role in case people haven't met you yet?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sherry Hendrickson. I'm a field operations specialist for the southern part of the state, but I also work half-time on the Workforce One project team.
I call her our Workforce One guru, so she's often the person to go to when you got Workforce One questions. Right, Sherry? So I know some of you have, she had sent out information about getting into the sandbox. Hopefully all of you have been able to get in. Let us know that when we get to the point where you're practicing, and we'll help problem solve that with you too. So, all right, so let's just get into Workforce One data entry. I do want to say a few things. First of all, number one, I know you guys have been in so much training lately, and you just got off of 3 days of new employee orientation. I apologize to put this right, the next day afterwards. It was just a timing thing to make sure we got everything in for you with schedules and everything. So I apologize. But luckily this is an hour and you can do it at your desk. Today will be more just the focus on Workforce One. We'll really dig into purchasing in Part 2 on the 14th of August, right? So just FYI on that. So let's just start talking about Workforce One data entry. Other directions. Here we are. So before anything, just wanted to review again the pre-ETS student enrollment process before we get into how to upload things into Workforce One. So as we reviewed in the 2-day kickoff training, there are basically 3 steps to enroll, in terms of paperwork for enrolling a student, and then 3 forms that are associated with that. So the first step is gathering their contact information, which again is considered directory information, so we don't need a release or a tenancy notice in order to get that first page, which is the request for pre-employment transition services. So that's the first thing you gather. The second step then is providing the tenancy notice, and that is the form which is how we use your personal information. So it's providing that to the student and the parent or guardian as applicable. And then once you've provided the tenancy notice, you can ask the student to complete the third form, which is the student information for pre-employment transition services. I'd say a best practice is to wait until you have all 3 forms and then upload into Workforce One. So you wouldn't be entering the student in until you have all those 3 forms collected. Okay. Next slide is, again, reminding us about the pre-ETS student definition. So you've gathered their paperwork. The other thing that you'll need, or items that you'll need to do is, number 1, verify that the student has a disability. So oftentimes you will have collected that on the 3rd form, the student information form, where a school staff person verifies that the student has a disability. But if that's not completed, you'll have to either ask that the student asks a teacher or a school staff member to complete that, or problem solve around another way to gather the disability verification. And we reviewed that. I'm not going to review how to verify. We reviewed that in the kickoff training. So there is a slide in there and all the different ways you can verify. You know, you could get an IEP, medical information, Social Security, award letter, different things like that. You can also review records from the school and case noted as well. But anyway, so make sure you can verify that there's a disability. You also want to verify that the student is within the age range of grade 9 through age 21, and that they are also in an educational program. So again, that is either they're in a program where they're working on a high school diploma or GED, which for sure the high school diploma piece is, that's what you're going to be working with primarily, students in high school. But they can also be in a post-secondary education or training program that leads to a recognized credential of education. So those are the 3 things you want to verify after you get all of their paperwork. So now is when you can go to Workforce One to enter them into the system. And as we note here, we're going to review with you today. It's kind of a 5-step process. You can't hear me very well? Is it going? Is it okay? Okay. Sorry if you weren't hearing me very well. The first step will be adding a new person. The next step is called Add Program New App, where you add a new PREATS referral. The third step is EDS, which stands for, I'm looking at Sherry.
Electronic data storage.
Electronic data storage. So you will see that we don't have hard files. Everything gets uploaded into Workforce One. We'll show you how to do that. We'll talk a little bit about case notes and case note categories, and then how you can also do consent to release or exchange information within Workforce One. So we'll talk about that. So now I'm going to hand it over to Sherry to show you these things in Workforce One. I'll just say this right now. What we do is we have slides for you that review all the steps. Sherry's actually going to go into the sandbox to show you these things live, but you have the slides to refer back to then. So I'll hand it over to Sherry to start with number 1, add new person. The first thing you do when you are entering someone into Workforce One.
All right. So so when you get when you meet with a new student, the first thing you need to do is check to make sure that they're currently not in Workforce One. So you would always go to Person Search. So you go to Search and Person, and this screen would come up. So I'm going to, my new consumer's name is Elton John. Something to think about with the first name especially, a lot of times we recommend to staff that they just put the first initial in case you're not exactly, you have the specific spelling of that name, because that, and then enter an asterisk behind that, which would give you all of the Johns that have last name John, first name starting with E. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. As you can see, there are no E. Johns in the system, so I'm going to be able to go ahead and add a new person. So always make sure you search first. That's the first step. So I'm going to go ahead and add Elton John, enter their birth date, and then an address. And then a county. As you can see, when I'm in county, I hit the B, and if I keep hitting B, it just goes through all of the counties that start with B until I find the one I want. So you don't necessarily have to do the pull down of the drop down. You can, or you can just keep clicking the first letter of the county that the person lives in until you find the county you need. At this point, phone number is not required, just addresses, but if you have the phone number handy, go ahead and put it in so then you don't have to do it later. And then the phone type, you'll see in the drop down, we have lots of choices. So it could be their cell phone, their home phone, their parents' phone, etc. So we're just going to go ahead and say this is a cell phone. Again, email also is an optional field, but it's a good way for us to be able to contact the person. So go ahead and put that in if you have it. And the rest of this is all optional at this point. So I'd go ahead and save this. So then it's going to bring up any records that are close to this, either by date of birth or by name if it looks close, because then the system's going to say, are you sure that this isn't a duplicate record? And in this case, Dion Joan is not Elton John, so I'm going to say add the new person record. So now you can see Elton is all in here with his phone number and address and email. On this page, we have alternate contact also. So if you want to add the parents' information or the social worker, you can go to add alternate contact. And from this drop down, you can see you have conservators, a guardian, legal, parent, social worker, other. So definitely choose parent if this person is a minor under 18. The difference between parent and guardian is a guardian is a legal court-appointed guardian. So your parents are your guardians, yes, but they're your parents first. So just making sure that you understand that in most cases you'll be entering a parent on this page, and then you just you don't have to put the address, but basically the phone number is probably the most important way, or email if you want to have a way to get a hold of that person. Okay, so that's alternate contact. All right, check and see. Students on search. Okay. If for some reason back on that other that main screen, if the person's already in there, then you wouldn't enter a new person. You would just update that information with any new addresses or emails that you would have. So it shouldn't happen much for you because they're high school students. So.
And if they are in there, they probably already have an open VR case file with a counselor. So you'll want to connect with the counselor that is assigned to that student and let them know that you received this paperwork and try to get to the bottom of why they might have filled it out. They might have been confused and thought it was another program. Or the teacher might have said, fill this out. And So anyway, that could happen. I could see that happening.
Okay, so once you have this contact information in, hang on a second, I got to switch my access here to make sure I have the same access as you, so you can.
As you're doing that, Sherry, one other thing I forgot to say at the outset is I realize that there's some staff on here that have been with the agency for a while, and some of this is very basic. You know some of this already, but I appreciate that you're on because I know there will be some information. Well, first of all, I want to verify that that you've got it all in terms of the PREATS referral side, make sure we have it all. But there are some items that we haven't covered yet towards the end. So I apologize to those that have been with the agency and know a lot of this. I know it's review, but there are also a good number of you that are totally new to Workforce One. So just want to acknowledge that. Thank you.
So here I am back at Elton John. So then the next step that you would do is on your left navigation. Left navigation is what we call the column on the left with all the different places within Workforce One that you can go. So you'll want to go to Program New Application under Case, and there you'll see the Add New PREATS Referral button. So you'll go ahead and click Add New PREATS Referral, and then you'll choose the location. I'm going to go ahead and assign this one to myself. The referral date, I'll say it was yesterday. The referral source, in most cases, it should be the school. So you would choose education, elementary or secondary school. It could be family or friends if you get it, if it was the parents. But in most cases, I would imagine you're going to choose education, elementary or secondary school.
I just wanted to say something about referral date. That would be the date that you get the final piece of paperwork. So maybe not the first date, or the date that you receive the first form, but when you receive the final form. Just wanted to say that.
Okay. So then, as you can see, the address pulled forward from the previous screens. And I don't have Elton's social security number. If you have that, of course, enter that. It's not required, but it's recommended that. Then it's going to ask me the ethnicity. Is the person Hispanic or Latino? So we have did not self-identify. The person is or is not. So I'm going to say he is not. Then you have the race. You can choose multiple races if the person self-identifies as both Hawaiian Native, Pacific Islander, and white. You can choose multiples. Student status is the next field. And in your case, it should always be either student with a 504 or student with an IEP or student without a 504 or an IEP. So one of those three choices will you'll choose. And then the next field says education program currently enrolled in. It should be high school in most cases. If it's a post-secondary, then you would choose either a technical school or a freshman or a sophomore in college. But in most cases, you would choose high school. Then it's asking for education program enrollment date. So in this field, you should enter the start date of the current semester. So if the person applies in January, their start date would have been September or August of the previous year. So, and if you're not sure about that, the other thing you can always enter is the application date. So whatever your referral date is. So I'm just going to go ahead and enter that because it's summertime right now, and they're currently not enrolled in any school program. So again, use the fall semester, whatever that would be. So if you're not exactly sure what date, you can use 9/1 of 18 or whatever. You don't have to know the exact date.
That's not as crucial.
Right. And then it's going to ask you for the school district. Again, you can click the first letter of the name, or you can scroll through the drop down, whichever is easier for you. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Mankato. And then what high school are they attending? Because as you know, a lot of districts have multiple schools. So I'm going to put Mankato West because that's where my girls went to school. High school graduation status would be still attending because they're currently enrolled in high school. And then estimated graduation date, you would enter in whatever the estimated graduation date. I'm going to go ahead and say he's going to graduate in June 1st of 2021.
We have one question, just clarifying when we say GED, what that is. So a GED is when it's an option rather than a regular high school diploma. So a lot of times individuals are attending adult basic education. Oftentimes they are a career force partner, ABE. And so students are working on getting the skills so they can take the GED, which is a test that allows them to still get high school graduation equivalent.
So if someone is working toward their GED and not in high school, you would choose state adult secondary school as your education program currently enrolled in, because they're not in high school any longer. They're enrolled in an adult ed program. so that they can get their GED. So that's the choice you would make
So yeah,
for that option.
it's a good clarification because depending on discussions with your team, you might want to talk with the ABE office closest to you or all of them in your region and talk about student referrals from there. You could have had students that dropped out of high school but are now enrolled technically in an education program through ABE and working on their GED. So that could be a great population.
All right. So all the asterisk fields on this page, those are the ones that you're required to fill out. So once you have all of those completed, you can go ahead and save. If you missed one, I'm going to go ahead and eliminate the date and show you. I'm going to save it. And, well, that's interesting. So as you can see, it saved what I had entered, but it's not completed because I don't have an estimated graduation date. It's not required at this point. That's why. Let me take out a different date so I can just show you what's going to happen. When I save it, then you get this little message on the bottom that says, please complete the following, and it's going to tell you which field you forgot. And this little asterisk or exclamation point is going to be on the field that you did not complete. So you can go ahead and put that date back in and save it. Okay.
And we do have a question, so I'm going to throw it out there just because it seems like an appropriate time. Amy's asking, would the state adult secondary school be used for an 18 to 21 program as well?
Good question. No. If a student is in a district 18 to 21 transition program, not every district has one, especially when you get into greater or outstate Minnesota, you don't see them quite as often. You see them more in the Twin Cities metro area. But if a student's in an 18 to 21 transition program, it's still considered high school. So was the option high school or was
Yes.
Okay.
High school.
Yeah, so you would say high school.
Okay, so now that you have the referral all entered, basically this person is now, I'll go to case assignment here and you'll see that this person is, I'm the primary staff person assigned to this case. So you'll be the primary staff person assigned to any case that you're working with. So that's how you know which ones are in your caseload. So we're going to go back to the program, and the next thing we're going to talk about is the ETS adding a new document. So again, electronic document storage. I think I said data storage earlier, but it's document storage. So this is where we store all of our records. So you'll have your referral forms, any consents you have or anything like that, and you'll need to upload those into the system. So under left navigation, under ETS, you'll go to add a document. And it's thinking. There we go. So the add document modal comes up, and you'll say where do you want to attach this. For some reason, I have two pre-ups. When I entered it, must have got in here twice. But anyway, you should only have one program sequence normally. So you would choose the sequence 1, and then what kind of document are you storing? We have a new, you would go to VRS program specific.
This would be for the first 3 forms that you get.
Right.
What you do with these.
And then we're going to browse and
Under Workforce One training.
And then
okay.
PDF.
So find your document that you uploaded. So you'd go to the multifunction machine in your office, upload it to your shared drive. So have one of your support staff walk you through how to do that, because we're not supposed to send them to our emails because of security. So there's a place for you to put them out on the shared folder for your location. So someone in your office can help you walk you through that. So that's where you will put the document. So then you go and find it there. So once you find the document, you go to next.
I'll say one other thing if I could, sorry.
That's okay.
For the first 3 forms, it's okay to upload all 3 of them together, and just upload them all as one document, basically, for this piece. So pretend that that's what you just did.
Okay. So automatically the staff associated will come up as yourself, so you can just leave that to default. Then the document name, you'll go to the drop down, and you would choose pre-employment transition services potentially eligible documents. We have a separate category, document name just for your documents. And then in the user defined name, you could type something if you wanted to. It just helps you more identify it. So you could say app, what else is in there?
Well, it's not technically an application. Sorry.
That's okay.
It's a request, Tennyson, student info. You could say something like that. Or maybe you just want to say first 3 forms or something to that effect.
So, you could put something in there for yourself, because then if you upload other documents later, you'll be able to know which one's which. So go ahead and put in something there, and then you don't worry about anything else. You can just say upload. The rest of the fields are all optional on this page. So then when we go down to document summary under ETS again on the left nav, go to document summary, and you'll see that here's my potentially eligible request, Tennyson student info.
So Emily has a question. I think it's appropriate time to ask it. She was just asking it, once the document is uploaded into that, do you delete them from your own computer and the shared drive? So
yeah,
that.
Yes. If you don't delete them from your specialized folder, everything in that folder automatically gets deleted. I think it's in 30 days. So, but we recommend that once you upload it, the first thing you should do is view it first. So you click on the little icon and open it, and make sure that all the pages made it, so that something's not missing. So once you've verified that all of the pages that you uploaded are there, then go ahead and delete it from your shared drive. So, yep, but make sure you're verifying first before you delete it, because if you no longer have the paper, then we're in a no good. So make sure you're verifying. Okay. All right. So your 3 other documents you can upload are worksheets or interest inventories, resumes, things like that. So when you go to, I can show you under references, and we can also I can send you out a desk aid, but
I got that on the next slide, on a slide too.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. So we can talk about the ETS configuration, so you can see what the different options are. So should we? ETS doc types desk aid. Yeah. So that's on SharePoint. Right. So do we want to show them?
Do you want to show them on SharePoint? I think she has SharePoint pulled up.
Just click on that SharePoint to the far right.
All right. Oh, underneath.
More.
Click on Workforce One, so that you're in. Go back to Workforce One.
Yeah, click somewhere on there.
There.
No, I'm trying to click over there.
Oh, there.
There we go.
Okay. So here's SharePoint, and under Forms, under EDS. Now, I don't think the new one's been uploaded yet because we just did it last Friday. But you can see it's EDS doc type, so this is the form that you would look at. And I can open this, but I don't think it's, this one is from February. So the admin office will be uploading this soon. And we can also send it, if they're not able to get it up soon, we can send it to you all because I sent it out to the staff on Friday.
I'll email it, the most recent version of this today.
Okay, so under here, as you can see, there's correspondence, there's court and legal, there's other credentials. I'm just trying to think of some of the other things. So she mentioned some IEP supporting documents, some medicals. So there's medical here. So if you get some medical information, that's where you would upload that to. IEP things go under education. IEP supporting documentation. So each one has its own document type that you would add to it. So having this desk aid will be very helpful for you.
So Becky Thunder has a question about, do the rehab reps have Adobe to upload documents?
With the new multifunction machines, Adobe is not required because the new multifunction machines automatically make everything in a readable format. So they won't need it. If your office does not have a new multifunction machine yet, then in those cases, until you get that, you would probably have to go through your VR tech or support staff person to make those readable. But if you're and I think we're about 75% with new multifunction machines, so just about everybody should be okay. Good questions.
Yeah, we do. If we maybe we want to go back to the PowerPoint because I towards okay, and kind of click ahead. Again, all of this was information that was reviewed by Sherry.
Yep. So adding your PREAS referral, adding EDS documents, scanning documents. So yeah, this is the mention about the documents from the MFDs are automatically optical character recognition accessible. So adding a document, walk through that. All right.
Okay. So the fourth item we want to review is our case notes. Just a few words before Sherry shows you that. Is to make sure you have a case note entered for each visit that you have with a student, and to do that in a timely manner. Each case note should also clearly describe the PREAT services that either will be or were provided and why. So here's an example where Grant has never had a work experience, thus I'm going to be referring him to XYZ CRP. CRP are providers or community rehabilitation programs. To assist him with finding a PREAS work experience, he would like to find a retail position in order to learn basic work skills. It's really helpful to have that information about kind of the why behind you're doing something as well. So that's just a real basic case note. Obviously, you can have a lot more detail than that, but at least in this case, you're referring to the actual PREAS service that is going to be provided. Pretty basic. And then I think that was all that we had for some basic information, and now Sherry can go back to the sandbox to show you how you do case notes.
Okay, so we're going to go back to, this one. Yes. Okay. We'll go back to Workforce One, and I'm going to show you how to enter a case note. So again, left navigation, you go down left navigation, and there's where it says add a case note. So you click add a case note, and the event date is the date that it happened, the meeting or the communication with the student. So, if you talk to them on Monday and today it's Wednesday, so I'm just going to go ahead and say this happened yesterday. Notes viewable, you can go ahead and leave that to all staff in the servicing agency. Your name automatically comes up, so you can just go ahead and leave that. The note template, there's 2 templates. We're not going to go into that today because I don't think you'll never use the SSA verification one. The action plan one we can talk about at some future time, but so go ahead and leave that blank. Category, you would always choose one of your pre-ETS categories. So depending on which of the 5 pre-ETS services it is, if it's more than one, you can click select deselect, and you can choose up to 5. So let's say this is about self-advocacy and post-secondary education counseling. So go ahead and choose whichever ones are appropriate and continue. And then contact method, again, is optional, but it's just helpful for you to know, was this an in-person meeting? Was it a letter? Was it a phone call? Whatever. So I'm going to say in person. Contact type, again, is optional, but it attempted to contact does not involve the person, so that would be more about a summary of something, or maybe you spoke with the school about someone and it wasn't really with the person themselves. Live contact with the person or third-party contact. So if you again, just a way for you to know how the meeting occurred or whatever. Leave your case notes open all the time, and then the subject would be meeting with Elton, and then you would go ahead and type whatever about your meeting, and whatever, and then you would go ahead and save. So the save and remain on the page would be, so I'm typing my case note and I started and my phone rings. So then I want to save and remain so that I don't lose it in case I, hit something or whatever. So you want to click save and remain and then answer your phone or someone knocks on your door or whatever, so that you don't lose what you've already entered. And then save and add a new case note would be, okay, I'm case noting about what happened on Monday, and now I'm going to case note what happened on Wednesday. So you'd enter the one about Monday, and then you'd save and add a new case note, and then do the one about Wednesday. Okay? So those are the differences between your button, and cancel would delete everything that you just entered. So you go ahead and save that. And then you get the quick view, which will show you your last 5 case notes for this person. Okay?
So if you go back to the PowerPoint, Sherry.
Stop sharing. Okay, I'm getting this.
Okay, and so we'll just go ahead. This is just a review what Sherry just showed you. Sherry did talk about case note category, but I just want to emphasize the importance. We need to report to the Rehabilitation Services Administration for every student that is receiving pre-ETS, which of the pre-ETS services they received every quarter. And so how we do that now, this is a new change for our agency, is through that case note category. So it's really important that you are in that category saying which of the pre-ETS, and again, Sherry showed you how you can select more than one, make sure that those are entered. And then behind the scenes, our data people pull from those case note categories for each student to tell RSA which of those pre-ETS students received. And again, the reason we do that is that it gives real-time information to RSA, that we thought that was probably the easiest way to be able to track that. So just FYI on that. And then this is just a screen again showing you the case note categories, and Sherry already showed you that.
You can multi-select.
All right, so now number 5 is consent to release or exchange information. So at the 2-day training, we shared with you one of our consent forms, which was the specific entity consent form. And so that was a hard copy of that. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about consent forms because we have different options for doing them. And the first thing to know is that if you bring a hard copy, and I'm going to show you, or we are going to show you next on SharePoint how you can find all the hard copies on SharePoint. It requires that a student, and if they're a parent or guardian, you know, if they're under 18 and you need a parent, the parent would need to initial all of the different fields on there. We'll pull one up here so that makes sense. But the Workforce One copies do not, so we'll show you why the Workforce One copies are easier. But let's go first of all so you can know where you find hard copies of consent to release forms on SharePoint. So you could, Sherry, just even go click on that, or maybe not. Okay, so maybe go, yeah, that. Go, yeah.
Using Internet Explorer.
Then we'll go back to
Yeah.
There we go. Go to the
This one.
all right.
Okay.
So we were already in the forms section. So you go to forms, and then for finding consent forms, which to me that's always a hard one to remember, it's actually under A.
Yeah. Considered part of the application process.
And it's all under authorization. So you have you can see all these different options there. And so the ones that you would probably use the most often would be, we have authorization. Let's pull this one up. Authorization to release, obtain private information with IEP team / high school staff. So that one might be a common one when you want to be sharing information with the school. So it's pretty basic in terms of the student's name, and then you can fill in where it says VR services, information about you, your office. And then you can see then this is where the student, or if they're under 18 or have a guardian, they would need to initial each of the fields here that you would be sharing information on. Oftentimes I would take a highlighter and highlight what the family would need to initial. And what's nice about this versus the specific entity form that we shared at the training is that for IEP teams, this consent form does not expire until the case is closed.
Mm-hmm.
With the one that we shared at the training, it's good for 1 year or less, depending on what you put in the field on that form. So otherwise, it's pretty basic in terms of completing that form. And then, Sherry, if you want to go back to SharePoint to review down to authorization. So others that you might use, like if you are referring a student to one of our providers to receive pre-ETS services, then you would do this one here, which is authorization to release exchange information with contracted service providers. We have one that says pre-ETS providers in there. I think we probably, because that was more for our current contractors, and I'm not sure what we're going to do with that one. We might just remove that because basically it'll just be contracted providers. So anyway, so this would be when you refer a student to a community rehabilitation provider for receiving pre-ETS services. And then we have one that's a medical. So if you, for some reason, did need to obtain medical information, we have that in there as well.
And all of these forms are also in Workforce One. So if you're meeting with the student and you have Workforce One available, you can just fill them out and print them and have them sign them. Or you can fill them out beforehand and print them and take them with to the meeting and then have them sign them. So
yeah, I was hoping we could go to that next. I wanted to know that's where you can find them on SharePoint. But then if you go into, we'll show you now in Workforce One, why it's easier to do it this way. So what Sherry was just saying. So,
So under forms and letters is consent. Currently, none of you are seeing that if you're logged into Workforce One in the sandbox, because Alyssa just talked to me about this morning. So I went ahead and changed my access, but I will go ahead and fix all of your accesses, both in the sandbox and in the live system, so that you'll have that access. But it'll probably be later today or maybe early next week, because I'm off tomorrow. So just know that it's going to come. So again, under left navigation, you'll go down to the forms, letters, schedule, and see consent. And then here's where you would add a new consent. So you would choose from the drop down of the career force partner. Consent would be if you're working with someone in the career force, the job service, or some other partner within the career force. The general consent, the IPS consent, which is one you'll probably use. I was thinking IEP. Sorry, my bad. Here's the medical consent, the partner consent. So those are probably the ones, the medical and the partner ones you'll probably use the most often.
Actually, I would say the general consent might be one they would use.
Because this is the one
quite a bit. Yeah.
When you choose general, then from this drop down there's your IEP teams.
And this would also be if it's a parent. So say the student is over 18.
Yep.
Then you click specific entity for parent. So I think probably the general consent might be the one you use the most. And within there, it would be IEP teams or specific entity.
Right. Post-secondary institutions could possibly be,
yep,
if they're in post-secondary.
So let's, so if let's say it's an IEP team.
Oops, okay.
And I wanted to say too, so it says IEP teams, but if the student does not have an IEP, but they're in high school, you could still use the same form. So because it says / high school staff, so maybe they have a 504 plan. So you would use the same IEP team / high school staff. And so what Sherry's doing now, this is where it's nice because you don't have to get initials. You would click on all of the fields of information that you're going to be sharing with the high school. And so after she clicks on some of those, we'll show you how it looks.
And if you have something other specific that you want, you would click other and then you'd type. And then the date the records this consent covers, you can leave that blank again. As Alyssa mentioned, this consent will be good as long as the case is open. So, and do not share this information with, if the consumer or the student is asking you to not share something with their parents, for instance, or, some of the things, you could put that in there. But, and then the reason for releasing would be coordinating and providing services, probably, okay. And then you'd save it as pending and print. I'm not going to print it, but I'll show you what it looks like all completed. So you can see that only the boxes I checked are on here, and that's why it eliminates the initial issue. Because they don't have to initial them because the whole long list isn't here. So it only prints the ones that you check. So then you would just print this and have the student and or the parent assign it.
That really is the ideal way to do releases for that reason.
Yeah. And then you would turn around and upload it to ETS. And you can then, once you verified that it's uploaded, you can shred the original.
All right. Are we scheduled to go to 11 or 11:30?
11.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yes. So, I know Megan put in a question, but I'm going to wait till the end, Megan, for that question because I want to see that they get through the content, and we'll see if we can answer it because it's a creative idea.
Well, maybe what I'm going to suggest, normally we would have you do the practice for a while and then you can ask questions, but I'll say this. We're not going to do that. So once the webinar is done and you have the time, that will be for you to practice on your own time. And then feel free to why don't you send the questions to me, because since Sherry's going to be out tomorrow, some of the questions I might be able to answer, and those that I can't, I'll just send to Sherry. Does that sound good,
Sure,
Sherry?
that sounds
So
fine.
any questions that you come up with as you're practicing, send those to me, and I will help you get those answers. So let's go back to the PowerPoint, Sherry, if possible. Okay, so again, this is where we would have had you practice. So there's just a little bit more information that we have that we want to share. So students on the VRS waitlist. First of all, I want to just explain to you what the VRS waitlist is all about. So because our agency does not have enough funds to serve everyone that applies for our regular VR services, we are required by the Rehab Services Administration to serve those with the most significant disabilities first. So the way that our counselors determine who has the most significant disabilities is by looking at functional limitations. There are 7 that they review as they get an application from somebody and gathers information about an individual. So those 7 are listed here, like mobility, interpersonal skills, work skills. A person at this time must have 3 or more of these functional limitations. Otherwise, they go on the wait list. So that's important for you to know, because if an individual is on the wait list, they can still receive pre-employment transition services. So let's go to the next slide. So this is another thing that RSA says, which is it's a little strange, but it's what they say, so we have to follow our regulations. So they say that a student must have received at least 1 pre-employment transition service prior to going on our wait list in order to receive them after they're on the wait list, basically as a potentially eligible student. Really, they're not a potentially eligible. They are eligible, they're just on our wait list, but it helps me wrap my head around this, and probably for you as well, because you are technically serving potentially eligible students, but you also can serve students on the wait list, because otherwise they wouldn't be receiving any services from our counselors. So the solution to ensure that we have to verify this in the case notes that a student has received at least 1 pre-employment transition service before going on the wait list is to get information from their school. 99.9% of the time, a student has received something in the way of pre-ETS from their school. A great example is an interest inventory. They've probably done something like that, and oftentimes that might be in their IEP if they have an IEP. I did a test earlier this year with one of our teams. I went through everybody age 21 and under on the wait list to see who we could verify pre-ETS for, and I was able to do that through the documents we've already received in determining their eligibility. I was able to do that 80% of the time. So oftentimes I could see in their IEP, for instance, they might have had a goal that said self-advocacy. So that was pretty easy, you know, or again, it might be an interest inventory or something. So that's how we do that. So if you could go to the next slide, Sherry. So the verification, so again, it could be, ideally it's in the paperwork we've already received, but if not, you could verify from talking to a case manager or a school staff person, and then in the case records, you would verify the name of the school, which pre-ETS had been provided, and the school person's name and title. And that's how we would do that. So the counselor could do that. If, you know, since they're the ones that had the initial contact with the student, they could do it, or you could do it. So it's just a matter of making sure that that's happened and that's in the case notes. And that's what I say on this slide. You or the counselor can verify. And then in Workforce One, so say you verified, and now you as the pre-ETS representative are going to serve that student. You are able to add, you could go to that case and add yourself as a secondary staff to the case. or a VR tech can also add you to the case. And that's under what's on the left navigation under case assignment. So pretty easy. All right, so let's go to the next slide. When a student that you are serving with potentially eligible services, when they apply for regular VR services, what needs to happen? So the first thing is if a student does apply and you, for some reason, are the one that gets the application, or maybe you're thinking a person needs regular VR services for whatever reason, whatever the reason might be, the first step would be consulting with your RAM and the counselor. And I know we talked about this at the 2-day training. We want to be very careful that we're not enrolling everybody that's a potentially eligible student into our VR regular program, because that would overwhelm our system. We're hoping we're going to be able to serve a lot of students without needing to do that. But on the flip side, we also don't want to deny that opportunity for those that need it. So that's why that consultation is so crucial. So when they do apply, then you will have to go in and add the counselor as the primary staff, and then you become the secondary staff. So again, that's under case assignment, and you'll be able to pretty easily figure that out. It's just, I think it just says move to secondary.
Yep.
So, and then if the student is determined, you'll want to wait till that counselor can do the eligibility and the priority for services, that wait list determination. If they're not on the wait list and the counselor is able to directly serve them, then it makes the most sense for you to just be removed from the case, and then the counselor would be the primary person serving that student. But if they're determined eligible and put on the wait list, then you can continue to provide pre-ETS.
So in that case, you would be the secondary and stay the secondary, and because the person's on the wait list, the counselor will stay as the primary, but they just won't get services from the counselor at that point.
Yeah, because the idea is hopefully they would come off the wait list at some point, although people haven't for quite a while, but someday we hope that happens. Anyway, so lastly, what we wanted to cover is exiting a student. So when do you exit a student? There's some obvious cases. First, when the student turns 22, they can't receive pre-ETS any longer. If they're no longer in an education program, so let's say they graduate from high school and they don't go on to another program, pre-ETS have to end the day they graduate, or say they drop out of school or whatever it might be. When a student is no longer interested or in need of pre-ETS services, or if you're unable to locate or contact the student. Best practice is to leave the case open while the student is in high school. So say you start them in 10th grade, I would say as long, to be checking in with that student and following along with them throughout high school. Maybe you're not always providing intensive, well, these aren't intensive services anyway, but maybe you don't see them all the time, but it allows you to keep them in the record, and you don't have to reopen them later. So as long as they're in school and you're still seeing them, I would say keep them open. But if you don't have contact with them for quite a while, or they say, I'm done, I don't want any more help, you can certainly close them before they graduate. So the process for exiting is pretty simple. First of all, you do need to enter in a case note that you've notified the student. So you can send a letter, or you can talk with them at school, and just record that in the case notes that the student has been notified. That's a requirement from RSA. And then it's as easy as going to the left navigation where it says exit, and then enter the closure date. And that's all you have to do.
Very simple.
Yeah, it's so much easier than our regular VR cases. So now I know we're over time, so I apologize to be doing that, but I know we have some questions that we want to answer for you.
Yeah, I just have one from Megan. It's more of an idea.
Ooh,
And Sherry might be a good one to answer it. So, so next to the pre-ETS category, is it possible to add a little light bulb with a brief cheat on the definition of the category in Workforce One, so you can kind of roll over it, I'm assuming, or and get that definition. So it's just a creative idea, I think, Megan, and maybe if I'm not clear on it, certainly add more into your question, but
And Megan, you're saying on the case note page, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would
Yeah,
say
that's-
having you'll recall that we reviewed the cheat sheet or the desk aid. You'll want that probably pinned up on your desk and something to be looking at quite often as well. So, Sherry will look into being able to do that, and we'll let you know if that's possible and when it can be done.
Yeah, that's a nice idea.
We love ideas, so anytime you have them, send them my way.
Yeah, and like to make it everybody's work easier. That's great.
Yep, that's our goal. How can we make things easier? Are there any other questions?
And if any of you have not been able to get into the sandbox yet, one of the things I didn't say in the email that if you haven't been able to log in, always go to the upper left and say forgot password, because you have to set up a separate, I mean, it can be the same password, but you have to go through the process to log yourself in the very first time, different than Workforce One. So, I mean, they're two different systems. Mm-hmm. So you have to walk through that process. So just click upper right, say forgot password, and then go ahead and follow the steps to set up a password. You can use the same one if you want, or you can choose something different. But so if you have any trouble, let me know today. Otherwise, if it's tomorrow, you can just work with your FOS, because she can also take care of that for you.
Okay. Yeah, the FOS is a great person to go to with Workforce One questions as well.
Yep.
So if you haven't been introduced to that person in your region, you'll have to ask your RAM about that.
Yeah.
All right. And it's FOS, F-O-S, Field Operations Specialist. Okay, so I think our last slide just has our contact information. So again, there's Sherry and there's me. Feel free, as I said earlier, as you're practicing, you can send questions to me, and then if I can't answer them, we'll get the guru on the line. So I think that's it. Thank you all so much. And the next time we're going to be digging in, it'll be a little bit longer time together to be digging into the purchasing side and how to do authorizations in Workforce One. So that'll be exciting. Look forward to that. All right. Thanks,
everybody.
Thanks.